Welcome back to the channel. Still waiting on a few parts. I know I haven't really uploaded anything this last week. As soon as the transmission gets here and we get that put in, we will be getting this thing running and driving, and our first sled pull is actually the 28th of this month. So stay tuned for that, but I thought this would be a good opportunity with me just thinking about what could I film. I wanted to talk a little bit about the truck and myself and kind of how we've gotten to this point. I know there's a lot of people that I didn't really develop a following until the common rail went in the truck. Before that, it's just kind of, whatever. So I wanted to kind of rewind a little bit, talk about where this truck started with me and how we've got to where we're at. I know there's plenty of content out there of guys that have big shops, build these trucks for a living. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys my perspective, being somebody that never really had a mentor going into this hobby. Everything that I do now isn't the cleanest work. I'm not the smartest when it comes to this stuff. There's always somebody that knows tremendously more than you do. But just basically straight drive and just having the ambition to bite off way more than I could chew constantly to get where we are now. When I first purchased this truck, it started out just a P-pump 12 valve with a 6-speed in it. Obviously the truck did not come factory with either one of those two things, but that's how the truck was when I acquired it about 6 years ago. As soon as I bought this truck, I knew that I was like, okay, if we're going to make horsepower, we're going to start building stuff. Financially, paying a shop to do this stuff was not in the cards for me. It cost a tremendous amount of money. So I'm like, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to experiment and start doing it on our own and not paying people to do it. So very first big job I ever did was probably 6 years ago. It was a big job to me. I was 18 years old and had not been around this kind of stuff before, and we blew a head gasket. So that was kind of the very first time I've ever been inside of an engine. And I was okay, this ain't too bad. You watch some YouTube videos and you think you know it all, and that's kind of where we started with all of this. The 12 valve that was actually in the truck ended up having a camshaft failure, which never happens. I mean, the truck was like 300 horsepower, and it completely ruined the bottom end of the engine. Never seen anything like it. It just kind of happened. We were turning a little bit of RPM, but nothing too crazy. And I ended up building a pretty awesome 12 valve for this truck. I'll actually insert clips right now of the 12 valve we built for it. Can see it was a pretty cool build, nothing too crazy, but it was a pretty clean, fun build. Had Waggler rods in it, 468, 485 compounds, big injectors, big pump, and the truck was a blast to drive. And you start knocking on that 750 horsepower range, and you really start considering how much more money do you want to put in a mechanical platform for a street truck? And the obvious answer for me was nothing. We're not putting any more money in it. We're going to go common rail. So a couple years ago, I kind of took on the task of common rail swapping this truck. We actually did a rack and pinion steering setup on it off of a 3rd gen 2-wheel drive truck, hydro boost brakes. The engine I built myself in my garage. Shai did all the machine work. I know we've talked in previous videos about what's all in this engine, but I figured we could kind of walk over it all again. Like I said, 14 millimeter main studs, 14 millimeter head studs, Shai built head. It's got valve springs, push rods, retainers, all that fun stuff. Clearances were a little loose, piston the walls 10 thou. Rings 32, 54, and the oil control rings are I don't know what they are because everything else dropped in so loose. I didn't even mess with it. Factory oil clearances on the mains and rod bearings. And that's pretty much it for the engine. It's got, I don't know if I mentioned, it's got the Waggler Street Fighters in it. Stock 0304 pistons. For fueling, it's got 150% over DDP injectors and a 12 millimeter S&S high-speed CP3. That's pretty much the gist of the build. It's nothing too crazy. We did 1,070 on fuel, and the truck's been very reliable for the most part. Nothing too crazy has happened. For turbo, it is actually a VS Racing 480/96 with a 132 foot, 132 housing on a T6 foot, stainless diesel T6 manifold, 2 turbo smart wastegates. As far as wastegate controlling, we just have a Harbor Freight air regulator that puts boost to the top of the gates, and that's kind of how we control those and control drive pressure and boost pressure. Second gen on 3 intercooler. It's flipped upside down. It's kind of neat. Aluminum eBay special radiator. Some O'Reilly's electric fans on a toggle switch. Nothing too crazy. I do everything pretty simple, pretty easy. It ain't always the cleanest, but like I said, I do it myself and just make stuff work, you know. I don't ever have any issues, so that's kind of how we rock and roll. As far as nitrous goes this year, we are going to up the nitrous program with a Max 5, put a couple kits on it. I'd like to be around that 1,400 horsepower mark with spray for the dirt drags. I know my tuner has been on me about getting plenty of data to do it properly. Maybe do some type of data logger, or at a bare minimum get an EGT gauge and a boost gauge in it and half-ass do that properly. Yeah, so that's basically the gist of it. I just thought this would be a short, sweet, simple video, just kind of talking about where the truck started and what's all in it. I know, like I said, we've talked about it intermittently since I started the channel, but I thought this would be a good rundown of just every little thing on the truck. As far as the transmission, it is a 48RE full manual valve body unit from WP Developments, 35 spline Sonex input shaft kit, 29 spline output, Sonex intermediate, GPZ clutches, all that fun stuff. I think the trans was probably the biggest expense of the entire build, other than obviously machine work and assembling an engine, but the transmission, I believe, is, you're knocking on probably $10,000 in the present day to build that unit. I didn't pay that much for it because it was 4 years ago when I had it built. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I guess I can show you guys the interior a little bit and kind of see what we got going on in there. So kind of just going over the interior a little bit. This is what we got going on here. It's got some Corbeau racing seats, little quick disconnect steering wheel action, a good old welded up piece of square tube for my shifter mount, bottle bracket right there between the seats. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing too crazy. The only gauges I run is just whatever my CTS3 reads off of the ECM. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Pretty basic. It's a little bit of a mess right now. We ain't got door panels on it and all that, but we'll get all that squared away. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I just kind of wanted to give a slight rundown of everything and kind of where me and the truck started to where it is now. Very boring video, but some of you guys are probably curious and that kind of thing. So one of the biggest things I stress to everybody is it does not matter what your abilities are, who you know, how much money you have. None of that stuff really matters. If you truly, truly want to build something like this, you can do it in your own garage. Don't let these big shops fool you on their awesome YouTube channels and their awesome builds. They make 1,000 horsepower look very intimidating. And like I said, there's 1,000,001 ways to do this better than I did. But here we are, a year later of absolutely straight abuse, and the truck has always been great. So yeah, just keep that in mind, guys. Until next time, see you later.